Bigfoot Radio. And in this episode, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. There is a guy on another channel over in British Columbia that likes to cover other people's encounters, and anybody that writes in, he'll share their encounters, which is really cool because he doesn't seem to edit, he just reads their encounters. But he has a general question, which was what he wants to know apparently is what or who or what are killing the Sasquatch. Why are they doing it? So being that I know somebody that actually knows a lot of the answers to that, I decided to have him on the show, and we're going to answer at least part of the question here, if not all of it, and you're free to believe however much you want to. And so with that, welcome to the show, the East Coast head of International Hominology of Forest People, and has been guest on this show and many others before, Robin McCrae. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Stu. Glad to be here. Hopefully we can get some answers straight. As just a little background, as you already know, I've been working with the Bigfoot since I was a toddler, as well as all the other cryptids. First abduction by the ETs, I was 4. So I do have a background in all this. I don't claim to be an expert because I don't believe there are experts in this field, but I am happy to share what I know.
All righty, then. Well, I guess let's just get right to it. First big question, of course, is who or what are busily assassinating the Sasquatch?
Well, there's a long list. I mean, of course, our type humans are a major problem for them. However, we've got government interference as well as interference from the other ETs. Now, our government, you know, when the Sasquatch people come out, it's really going to be a jolt to our government because they've spent hundreds of years trying to prove that the ETs don't exist. And as many of us know, as much as a lot of people would like to believe in just the flesh and blood part of the Sasquatch, that is not completely accurate. And I speak no ill will of anybody that believes they're flesh and blood, but I've spent literally my entire life with them, and they can be flesh and blood, but they're not flesh and blood at all times. And so you have an ET part and a major connection with them. And when it comes to the ETs, you know, the Bigfoots were created. They were put on this planet and they were created. They were not born here. This isn't their natural home. I have some very serious suspicions as far as what planet created them and what group of ETs. However, that is not the groups that are actually actively trying to kill them. When they were first placed here, they were put here to watch us. And I get my information, I go straight to the Bigfoot. So not only what I personally observed myself, but what information they've given to me, whether they verbally speak to me or mind speak, I can get it both ways from them. And they were originally put here to watch us. So learn what our ways are, watch what we're doing. I think they're probably appalled by the way we treat our planet, but regardless, they were to report back. Now, that being said, the group that originally created them, I do not honestly believe are the ones trying to kill them. I think we have more of a problem with the Zetas than we do with the Evens. And I think that the Zetas are probably, as well as other groups, I don't think it's limited to one group. They didn't do what they wanted them to do, is basically what the Bigfoots have said. The explanation I got was they were here to watch us, they were here to report back and observe, to do nothing more. But again, they are a human hybrid. The DNA proves it. In that hybrid mix, you have humans, which means there's humanity. And they did not go along with the plan of reporting back and spying on us. You know, I think that once they got here, they wanted to live their lives, you know, and so they went against what they were supposed to do. Now, there's several groups of ETs that have been actively pursuing them to hurt them and kill them. I myself, with other people present, I wasn't by myself, witnessed a ship come down in my back acreage. And when the doors opened, what came out would at first glance look like a Bigfoot. However, they were very clearly not. They were very robotic in motion. They looked the part, but they couldn't act the part, and they were highly aggressive. These things were like a tall killing machine, literally. My Bigfoot were terrified. They were like ducking for cover, and I was asking them where they were going and what was going on, and the only thing I was told was, these are here to kill us. And I said, why? And they said, they will take us back with them and we will be destroyed. I did not find out the reasoning behind that for probably about a month before they calmed down enough to say it was because we won't do what they want us to do. And again, I was not alone to witness this. There were several people that were there. And this was not the first time I've experienced it. I've talked to many, many witnesses that have also witnessed these ships coming down and these creatures coming off of the ship. And they're very robotic in movement. If they're not moving, you would swear that they look just like a Bigfoot. Once they move, you can tell they're more robotic, and they are nothing but aggression. You're not going to get them to mind speak. You're not going to get them to speak at all. You may get some yells out of them, but that's about it. One thing that is very common with ETs is they are wonderful at recreating the look of either a Bigfoot, a human, or whatever they're trying to replicate. They cannot get the voices right. And that is one thing that you can really tell, because they can't get the voices correct. And I've yet to find any of these things that they've created to be able to, when they mind speak, it's always very, very direct, very without feeling. What little bit of mind speak they can do, they cannot fluently mind speak like a lot of them can, like a lot of the Bigfoots can. For any of those people out there that actually mind speak with them, when they mind speak, they're very fluid. You can almost to a point where you can carry a conversation on to some degree. These robotic ones, they cannot do that like that. What little bit of mind speak you can get, it's very direct, it's very authoritative, they're going to tell you, and that's it. You know, they're void of emotion because they're soulless.
So these things are like the Sasquatch version of a hunter-killer robot from Terminator. They look
Really,
like Sasquatch, and they're there to kill them.
Absolutely. And I'll be honest with you, if somebody had come up to me before I had physically seen them, I would have laughed, because it just seems like it's so incredible. So for the people that don't believe me, I'm okay with that, because I've been there. But I've physically seen these things in action, and I've seen them coming off a ship with other witnesses with me. So, you know, the old saying of, well, she's crazy or whatever, they can stuff it, because that's not how this went down. There was at least 3 other people that witnessed it the first time I saw it, and there was as many as 4 or 5 people with me the second time. I have seen them out in the woods, and my Bigfoots have said they'll warn me, and they'll say, get out, it's not safe, one of them are here. You know, so, I mean, I've talked to many witnesses that have also experienced the same thing as far as seeing these things, which in the beginning, and this happened, I want to say back in like 2010 or 11, that I witnessed this the first time. And, you know, it's one of those things that you see it and it's so incredible, you can't really believe it. And so when I started hearing other people had experienced it as well, you know, I already knew it was real because I witnessed it. But getting that verification that others had witnessed it as well was actually some kind of a comforting thing. But then it was difficult because these were landing in the back field of where I lived. My children lived there. You know, so I mean, you are then concerned about the safety aspect. Fortunately, the clans that I was working with at the time were wonderful, because they always warned me before anything happened.
I know you've mentioned several times when the Space Boys were hanging around the property, they warned you in advance, even if you were like driving home or something. Hey,
Yeah.
you know, the little gray jerks are here. Don't come back right away.
They would. I went to, in fact, when I first moved to where I'm living at now 3 years ago, I had a doctor's appointment, and I went literally to the gas station, which was like 3 miles away, and the one that I'm closest to, and he always calls me Mom because he was around when my kids grew up. He heard my kids call me Mom. You know, other than my tribal name that they call me, everybody calls me Mom because that's just what they think my name is. And It's crazy. I have a tribal name, and then I'm mom. I'm everybody's mom. And so I'm pumping gas, and he was like in panic. And he's like, Mom, 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 look towards the house. And I'm like, okay. I look towards the house, and there's this massive ship over my house. And he said, they're looking for you, and they're looking for us. Don't go back. And I said, well, I'm not going back right now, but I have to go back eventually. So I went to the doctors, and afterwards I said, is it safe to go back? And he said, no. They are waiting. So I literally went to Walmart and walked around Walmart for a while until I got the okay. It was safe to go home.
So, from what you're saying so far, Bigfoot were created, or Sasquatch were created by some other race. They're hybrids. We already know that from the Ketchum DNA study.
Yeah.
And the race that's trying to exterminate them is not the same race that created them?
You know, in the beginning, I'm going to be honest with you and tell you, in the beginning, I thought it was. I no longer believe that. I was given some information, and I believe that information to be true. And if it is true, which I believe that it is, they were created from a completely different race. Now, I will say this, all of the ETs, all of the cryptids, they can all mind speak, and it's like this giant network. And when you mind speak, everything out in the galactics can hear it, you know,
Yeah.
for the people that know how to block it, of which I can, but for the most part, everything hears. Now, I believe from what I've been told from the Bigfoot is that, you know, these other entities are now wanting to pull information from them because they can use them to locate what they want, whether it's a human, whether it's livestock or whatever. And we, at about 2 years ago, we were given some very good information on the fact that the ETs are creating more hybrids and that we need to be amazed at what comes up next. And I have to believe that that information that we were given is legitimate, because I have a hybrid running around by me right now that I have no clue what that thing is. It's not aggressive. It hasn't bothered anybody. But a lot of things that I have seen and other witnesses that have contacted me really support that theory.
Reminds me of that one passage in the Bible where it says that men's hearts will be failing them for fear of what is coming upon the earth.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were given information basically that said that they are creating more hybrids to put on the planet. They never stated if they were doing it to harm, if it was experiments, or they never said the reasoning. I mean, I would tell you if they did, they haven't. And since that time, I've been kind of watching. Now, I will say one thing. I was told by the Bigfoots, and I want to say this is back right around 2016, that at some point in time, I was going to have to encounter something called a Micaiah. And I said to them, what does it look like? They showed me a mental picture of which I drew. So that they told me to study it, and that sometime I would have to go up against this Micaiah. And I was like, okay. And then as people would contact me and say, there's this weird cryptid-like thing running around, and I would ask the Bigfoots, and I'd say, what is it? It's part of the Micaiah. And I said, well, you know, what is exact? I thought the Micaiah was just like one cryptid. And they said, no, it's not. It's a blanket name, and it means thee that walk the earth that has no name. Now, some of these cryptids that the Bigfoots are labeling under Micaiah are actually government created.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
these things are
new cryptids, not standard models, new stuff that somebody's making.
Absolutely. And we're getting the double whammy, because we're getting it from the ETs that are creating things and dropping it off here. Our government's doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things that don't really have a name, the Bigfoots are putting it under the term Micaiah. And I've actually had contact with people that have contacted me and said, I don't know what this thing was I just saw. And then they sent me a picture of it. And I took one look at it, and I said, oh my God, this is exactly what the Foots told me in 2016 that I was going to have to go up against. You know, and nobody knew that. The only person that knew about that drawing that the Bigfoots had shown me that I drew out was my husband. Nobody else had seen it. So it wasn't a possibility that someone could contact me and say, oh, look it, because they knew about it. Nobody saw that drawing except my husband.
Do you think the Micaiah are actually being controlled in whole or in part by the AI network that we're not supposed to know about, that the humans didn't make?
I believe so. I think that we are not aware of how much control the AI really has. You know, the AI controls the Dracos. The Dracos control the cabal. The cabal has hands in our government. So it's just like a chain of command that, you know, how do you get away from this when their tentacles run deep everywhere?
Yeah. Yeah, the omnipresent, all-seeing eye of Sauron watching from Mordor or Washington, D.C., whichever you prefer.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say this, when it comes to dealing with the ETs, because I've had to have contact since I was 3-4 years old, whether I wanted it or not. I've had contact with good ones. I've had contact with bad ones. I will say this, you know, not only will you see them in the flesh and blood, but they will come in a dream state, and they can do every bit as much damage in dream state. You can get every bit as much physically hurt in dream state as you can when you're awake. And I know that that sounds really bizarre, but I have hospital reports to prove that you can get hurt just as much in dream state as you can when you're awake. But I will say this, and it's taken me a long time to actually learn this, but a couple things. They can't find you in white noise. It's like they go blind. And I've tried that as an experiment multiple times myself, as far as others. We have tried that out, and it actually works. You don't want like dark music. You want upbeat music that makes you happy and makes you feel good. I don't care if it's gospel music or just regular happy music.
Like power metal
Pop.
or Bad Brains or something like that.
Yeah, that doesn't work. That does not work. You have to have something that's lighthearted and happy. I mean, turn on pop music if you want, because that's not a harsh music, but it has a very high beat in it. And crank it up, because it's like they can't find you in it. They really and truly can't. The other thing is, for people, if you get visited in dream state, or even if you get visited when you're awake, they can look exactly like anybody from your past. It could be somebody that you met one time in high school. And for whatever reason, they don't have a problem going back that far, whether it's going back far or somebody you met yesterday, and recreating what that person looks like. They cannot, and I stress this to everybody because I know it's hard to believe, they cannot get the voices right. They literally cannot do it. I was attacked, and this was back, I want to say, and I'm guessing, don't quote me on the date, I want to say back in 2014 maybe. And as soon as I saw this person, I knew he was a reptilian. The eyes were very easily to detect. And he literally followed me, and I went back to our hotel room. A friend of mine and I were staying the night in, and I was laying there, and I knew I was going to get attacked, and I was wide awake. I didn't go to bed. And when he followed us, we went into a gas station. It was also a pizza place. He couldn't talk because they can't do the voices. They have no clue how to do the voices, but they can look the part.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to go to bed that night, she was in her bed. She was asleep. I was in my bed, and I was like waiting. I was already scared because I knew what was going to happen. I was fine 1 minute, and the next minute I was jerked off of bed with such a force. It was unbelievable. And we had heard something on the outside of the wall before we had gone to lay down. And it had me 3/4 of the way off the bed, and I'm trying to scream, and I can't make a noise. And I hit the nightstand, which tipped something over that woke my friend up, and she got up, and she's grabbing me, trying to pull me back on the bed. These things exist. I'm sorry for the people that don't believe that they do, because you're making yourself very vulnerable.
Yep. Well, and you can't protect yourself against things you don't know about. So there's definitely that to the whole thing.
Exactly.
So now, what do you think the reason is for this other race wanting to exterminate the Sasquatch? And let's go back to their creators. Are the creators still getting information from them that they put them down here to be watchers for?
My understanding, from what I've been told from, and you already know this, not only do I mind speak, but I talk with a lot of Bigfoots. A lot of them. I have a select few that I believe all the time, because they can fib just like a person can. Mm-hmm. But I have my core group. They have proven to me time and time again how honest they are. And from my understanding, is the ones that created them are not the ones that are keeping tabs. These are coming from different ETs, not the ones that created them.
So is that maybe one of the reasons why they don't want to do the job? Because the ones that actually put them down here to do the job, they're
It's
not
possible.
having anything to do with it. And some other race is going in, oh, you're conveniently here. You guys can be
Yeah.
scouts for us. And they're like,
Well, and I think that's an entirely realistic possibility. I really do, because number one, they weren't sent here for them. The ones that created them wanted them to watch and, observe. But from what I've learned, they have not done anything to hurt anybody here. They also are the same ones that created the dogmen. And so they were not trying to hurt anybody. They were trying to learn about our planet. And so I think that's important that we know that, they weren't sent here to do harm. But then you have these other things that are out there that will. And then again, then you've got the government creating cryptids and releasing those. Not that they'll ever admit to it, but they do. Like with the dogmen, we've got some dogs that are just killing machines. And I mean, I'm not an expert on anything, but I can certainly tell you what I've learned. I've been doing this my whole life, not by choice, just because this was my life. I didn't know it was any different. And you've got a whole group that the government created of the dogmen, and those things are killing machines.
yeah. And if you guys, you might want to consider this for a second, in that the video that I turned out when my whole channel got demonetized for no reason on YouTube was militarized dogman.
Exactly. Now, if the military has created a Bigfoot, I've had people ask me that, and I will be honest and say, can I prove that they have? I actually cannot prove it, but I will tell you that I believe that yes, they have. And the reason why I say that is because the Bigfoots, the government's been taking them hostage for a long time. There is a multitude of reasons why they don't want them to come out. And I had been notified by a government contact several years ago that they were buying up thousands and thousands of acres in all the western states because they were building underground bunkers to hold them hostage in. Since that time, myself, as well as a few other people, have been contacted by them when they are being held because they want help. And at some point in time when that has happened, they were being implanted, so to speak, with things to create hybrids. And these hybrids, it's nothing that anybody wants to mess with. So I think realistically that that's something that's going on as well.
We know from Phil Schneider going all the way back to the 90s that he was working for the government building deep underground military bases. And we both have a personal friend that actually met Phil in one of those underground military bases. So that 100, as far as I'm concerned, that 100% vets him for being active. And then, at the time he was talking about it, he was mentioning that there was like over 30 that he knew of. Well, that was back in the 90s. How many underground military bases do you think they got now with all the runaway spending and all the trillions of dollars that disappear? Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's just really, it's sad because they're taking these cryptids and creating monsters. Yet everybody thinks the cryptids are the monsters, and they really aren't. Now, again, there are good and bad in all of them, but there's also good and bad in our people. Right. So to say that, all the dogmen or all the Bigfoot are bad or they're all good, I don't agree with either one of those synopses because there is good and bad in everything. Number one, that's the cosmic balance. And number two, even in our people, we have good and bad. I mean, you've got pedophiles and murderers and rapists and psychopaths. I mean, the list could go on and on. And
well, you can even extend that to animals. I mean, there's, like most bears will ignore humans. Some of them are bad and they'll go and attack and eat you. So,
exactly. I mean, there is the cosmic balance is there's good and bad in everything. There is not just good and there's not just bad. And, so are there bad Bigfoots out there? Yeah. Have I ever encountered them? Oh, yeah. I've been called to go help in different areas where there were highly aggressive ones.
Yep. So Do you think the reason, now, first, let's get back to this now. Which ET race is chiefly involved in exterminating them?
You know, I've been working really hard to try to pinpoint that. I think there's a very big possibility the Zetas are dramatically involved in that. The ones that I saw on that ship looked very much like the smaller grays. When I
The
was
little worker drone ones.
yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think, you know, realistically, that's a good possibility. Do I think that is the only race that's doing this? Absolutely not. I really don't. I think there was a time when I was stupid and I thought, you know, it's only one race that's hunting them. I don't believe that anymore. I've seen too many different crafts come looking for them. And I think I've shown you this picture. I have a picture of a UFO beam coming down from a ship over the top of my bedroom.
Right.
And
It's been on my show. We've shown that before.
yeah. And I've gone and I've seen beams come down looking all over my front yard. I know what they're looking for. You know, we have nights that, in my son-in-law the other night, he's staying with me temporarily, and he heard the humming from the ships above the house. And he's like, Mom, what's going on? And I'm like, it'll be fine. You know, and we get them all the time. My husband left one night and he ran into town for something and he came back. It was dark out. There's a UFO hovering over our garage. You know, I think you use this picture too. I sent you the photo of the triangular shaped craft above my garage, and then below it is a portal and there's a head coming out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. If I didn't, then make sure you send it again so we can show
I
you.
will. I'll send it to you. You know, that's the thing. I talk a lot about all these different things, and people are, you know, I either get the people that say at least she's being honest and she's, you know, forthcoming with what she does know. Then I get the other side of the coin that says I'm crazy. If I'm crazy, why do I have pictures of all these things? You know, I don't have a picture of the robotic Bigfoot. I will say that because at the time when I did see them, the last thing I wanted to do was ask them for a photo.
Other people have seen them though too. A long time ago, they had somebody on Sasquatch Chronicles that said they saw a Bigfoot, and then he like stopped, and a little dish antenna thing came up out of his shoulder,
Oh, absolutely.
and then retracted again. He went walking off.
Now, have I seen that particular thing happen? No, I haven't. Do I believe that it was legitimately, as it was claimed? 100% I believe it. I've seen too much to disbelieve it at this point.
Another question that comes to mind here now is the why. We can pretty much extrapolate that with our government's involvement because, you know, mad scientists control everything. Did we lose you? Oh, we lost you for a second. Okay, there you are.
I'm sorry.
You know, they want to run their secret testing and stuff, and if you got, it's kind of a problem to just abduct people because they have like IDs and people are looking for them and stuff. But this undiscovered species that doesn't actually exist, you can abduct them all day long and do whatever the hell you want with them. So,
exactly.
You know, obvious to see why they'd want to do that. Plus, of course, military. Yeah, let's figure out how we can either control them or make our own version for military programs. That all makes sense too. But the aliens being involved, other than them wanting to, you know, grab some and tinker with them, which obviously it seems like they've been doing that for a long time, why do they want to exterminate them? Is it just because they want them to be spies for them and the Sasquatch won't do that, or is there some other reason?
Pretty much. The only thing, and I'm sure there's more reasoning behind that, I can share with you what I was told, and that was basically that they're not cooperating. They're not doing what they wanted them to do. And so if they kill them, for everyone they kill, and they replace with what will do what they want them to do. And I think that has a lot to do with it. There's probably more reasons because, as I've learned with a lot of this stuff, that there's a million reasons for every single thing that goes on. But what they have shared with me is that they're refusing to do what they're told by these groups. Now, I took that to mean that it is more than just watching. You know, could it be some of them are abducting for the ETs? I believe that wholeheartedly. I think that a lot of the disappearances that we get, not only, I think, you know, not all the disappearances are done by the Bigfoots. I mean, let's be clear on that. But there are occasionally some that are, And not all of them, but I do believe that some of them, it's very possible, are being done by the robotic ones, and then they're taking them to the ETs. But I don't think that that's every case. That's just, some of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I recall, there was one oddball report of somebody that had been abducted by a Sasquatch, and then they remember being on a ship with little gray aliens, and then they remember the Sasquatch dropping them off again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I believe that 110%. There's just too much of what I've seen and what I've learned not to believe that.
Wow. Now, is there any other background information that you can give us on this subject from what you've experienced or seen or people that have
Well, I think that, a few things. I think when people do see the Sasquatch, I mean, for the most part, they're kind. There are some aggressive ones. But I just think it's a matter of knowing, being observing, these things will look like a regular Sasquatch. They cannot do the vocals, right? I mean, they literally, they can make the growls and, that kind of a thing. The mind speak is very limited, and it's not always very nice, and it's very short words. They can't form a complete sentence. It's just a word here or there, which when it comes to mind speak, they are able to form sentences. They are able to speak a little bit more fluidly than per se when they're verbally talking. And I've talked to them both ways. So there are noticeable signs, but you have to be really observant. And these robotic things are nothing to be messed with, because there's not a thing you can do to stop them.
What's been tried? Acid, electrical damage, high explosive. Let's put on the list.
No, I mean, honestly, I'm sure that they can be killed. How to tell you to do it, I don't know. I really and truly don't.
EMP grenades. Bye-bye.
Exactly. Electrocution, I don't know. I mean, the ones that I saw, because mine had warned me, I just strictly went in the house. They don't seem to, like, I haven't noticed them coming up to the house at all. My guys are pretty good about keeping a lot of stuff away. So, I mean, I'm pretty safe most of the time. I have had ETs that have come after me before where they were not friendly, but I get that few and far between. Generally, I get the heads up from the foots before that happens, so I'm more ready for it. They've taught me various things to do to try to protect myself, of which I do. I do a lot of energy work, and that seems helpful. But like I said, there's some races. There's so many different races of ETs, and we really don't even know from a head of a pin how many are out there. There's literally hundreds of thousands of races of them. And, like I said, I do believe that the Zetas have a lot to do with what's trying to kill the foot. Do I think that other ones are trying to do it as well? I really and truly do, because they are telepathic. Everything can hear. Everything can shapeshift, which doesn't make it any easier. When you're dealing with the Bigfoots on a flesh and blood level, it's really just so much more easier. But the truth is, they don't stay in just flesh and blood. And then you get into all of this paranormal ET problematic things.
So let me throw out a crazy idea here. There's this thing that was formerly called UN Agenda 21 that they've now changed to 2030 because somebody kind of slowed down their plan. And part of the stated goal of that is to move everybody to megacities and depopulate the countryside so the animals can have it. And one of the things they want to do is completely depopulate the state I live in and one next to it, move everybody out of there. That's part of their agenda. And, it's going to be pretty hard to get a couple million really heavily armed rednecks in the mountains to want to move out of the mountains and move to a megacity. But what if they're being attacked by these terrorizing cryptids? These Bigfoot things are attacking them that aren't really Bigfoot things. That would make it a lot easier to convince them to want to move to the megacities and get out of the country, huh?
Yeah, but I guess my thought on that, and actually this is the first time I've heard of it, like I said, and you know me, I'm usually so busy with all this stuff that I miss some of it. But the first thought that I would come to mind is, what part is the government playing in this? And are the cryptids that are running people off the ET created robotic cryptids, or are these something that the government's doing? Because out in all of these western states, they've got underground bunkers all over the place. So what are they trying to get everybody out of the countryside?
Yeah.
So
Or
that
what are
can,
they cooking up that they're going to release on the countryside to drive everybody out of it?
absolutely.
And don't
I
forget,
know
this
that.
is the UN agenda, which means
Yep.
global. And what are they trying to do right now? Global reset. Hello,
Yeah.
wake up.
I know. And, then you've got, they're not just sticking to the western states. They've dropped off so much stuff in the Ohio Valley. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And really, and I want people to understand this, when you have, and again, not all Bigfoots are good, not all Bigfoots are bad, so I'm not saying that they're all saints by any means. I work with a lot of people, helping them with their problems, whether it's connecting in a good way or trying to deal with problem areas that are, from different cryptids. But I will say this, a lot of your really hateful, nasty Bigfoot, they go up in the mountains. They go to off the road places where there's not people because they don't like us, because they want to be left alone. They are the ones that leave and go to these areas because they don't want contact. But yet our people follow them.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's
yet
what I
they're
always
the bad
tell
ones.
everybody. If you want to go looking for Sasquatch and you don't already have an active area or something, find something somewhere near civilization. Because the further you go out into the woods, the better the chance you're going to run into one that doesn't want you there and won't put up with you.
Absolutely. And I try to tell that to people a lot. You can get a lot of interaction near the city.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
I only live
and it's
7 miles.
generally non-aggressive and pretty benign. They're used to dealing with humans. They're used to seeing you.
Yeah.
They patterned you. They know what dumb things you're liable to do. And sometimes they provoke a reaction just because it's hilarious to them.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. Last night I'm sitting there and I've got a knock at my door, and I get up and of course there's nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, funny. So I go and I lay back down and I look out the front and I see one in shadow form walking around the car, and then it walks in front of the car, goes over by the garage and goes into the bushes. I mean, clear as day. The dogs are going crazy, of course, but they do pranks all the time. I mean, I don't have any problem at my house with aggression. I don't have any problems at my house with the dogmen. I don't have problems with the Bigfoot. And most of the time, the ETs are tolerable. Like I said, again, I've had my share of bad encounters, but I've had more positive encounters than bad. I've gotten some pictures of them outside. We were outside the other night, and Igor stays at my house. Igor Borsta stays at my house quite a bit. And he had gotten for him and I to use these night vision goggles. And you can,
Nice.
do all kinds of funny, yeah, they're fun. And I just, I was using them all the time, and I just got busy and forgot about them. And my son-in-law was there, and he said, hey, Mom, can I use them? And I said, sure. So he's out sitting on the front porch. And anytime you're out at night at my house, if you wait long enough, something generally happens. And he come running in and he said, there's an ET and it's right across the road. He said the things, it would pop up behind these bushes and then it would go down. And I said, are you sure it's not a Bigfoot? He said, this thing had a really long neck. And
Yeah.
as we all know, yeah, it was like a whitish gray color, had a very bubble head, very, very long neck. So we went out and we watched the thing popping up and down behind the bushes for the longest time. It did nothing. It didn't try to hurt anybody. So, I have to stress that everything is either good or bad. It's not just one-sided.
Well, and that just makes sense. There's individuals in any group, like I said before, even bears. Most of them are, human, run away. And then there's a few of them that are like, it looks like that'd be easy to kill and eat.
I know. We've got this white feral dog that's been hanging around my house now for a year. I can't get rid of this dog. I've tried to catch this dog. Everybody knows I have an animal rescue. I've tried to catch this dog, whatever, and no luck. And twice now, I've looked outside and we have a couple of white Bigfoots there. One of the ones I'm very close to. The other one, he's kind of like the strong, silent type. And I've looked out there in the middle of the night because from my bedroom, when I lay down, I can look right out the window and see kennels in the front yard. And he's picked that thing up and put it in a kennel. I don't know how many times. And she just climbs the chain link or she digs out from under it and she's out running again. But, I just don't have a lot of those problems. Have I gone other places when I've been called to help with problem ones, I have. So I know how dangerous they can be, but I'm not having that issue at my place.
Well, then let me ask you to conjecture or offer the answer, if you know it, to this question, which is, what can we do to help the Sasquatch people in this crappy position they're stuck in?
You know what? That's the $1,000,000 question. I would say if you have a relationship with them and you're connected with them and you have contact where, you either mind speak or verbal or whatever, or even just have them around you, be aware. Be aware. Watch what's going on. If you run into one of these things, please just get away. Don't even try to have any type of contact. But at the same time, tell the foot, this is here. I know that sounds crazy, but do it. Because they're letting us know when they're around. And these things truly are after them. They are killing them off. And I've had foots that have contacted me because several of their members of their clan were taken. And they don't get to come back. And I think we just need to be really hyper vigilant about noticing if you are in an active Sasquatch area, be hyper vigilant about noticing the movement. Okay, you've got to know the movements, and don't sit there and try to encourage contact with these things, because all you're doing is keeping them around, which isn't safe for you or them. As far as to protect them directly from those, I honestly wish I had that answer. Generally, if they ask me something or if they tell me to do something to help them with this, I just do it. I mean, I'm not blind about it. The thing is, they come to me all the time and ask me for help to do this, that, or the other thing. And I'm like, the two questions are, will this be good for your people, and will this be good for my people? Yeah. And I reserve the right to say I refuse.
Sasquatch Rotary Club has to benefit everybody, or else it doesn't happen.
Absolutely. And if you go back to their foundation, they work under the law of one. Everything is done as a collective. This is why their species is more successful than ours, to be honest with you. Our people don't work under the law of one. We don't work as a collective. Our world has gotten to be where it's everybody for themselves. It doesn't work. It's never going to work. They work under the law of one. That's one of their beliefs. They have a culture. They have their own laws. They have their own way of life, and it is not the same way that ours is, which is why there's so much conflict between them and us in some cases, because people don't understand where they're coming from, and they don't understand where we're coming from, because it's two different cultures. But they do live their lives by the law of one, and it works.
So now, you mentioned earlier that they can be flesh and blood, and they can also be immaterial.
Yeah.
And a lot of the tribes mentioned that they walk between two worlds. So where's the other world? Where are they when they're not here?
They're multidimensional. I mean, they can go into any dimension that they so choose.
Well, now, before you start throwing that, everybody misuses the term dimensional. There are higher and lower dimensions, but we can't access them. You're talking about a different vibrational frequency, not a dimension.
Yeah. Well, now, actually, according to them, they can go to multiple different dimensions. Do I understand how that works? No, because I can't do that. Mm-hmm. Now, I've talked to some of the Bigfoots that have said they are 9th vibrational levels. I've talked to others that have said they're 11th. So I think it just depends on, how high up on that chain of command they are. But as far as going to different dimensions, they do go in multiple different dimensions. I've had some come back and say that they went someplace still that they claim where dinosaurs were at, I've had
that
others
doesn't make it a different dimension. I'm talking strictly physics theory here. Right. 2 dimension, there's nothing. It's flat. 1 dimension, there's nothing. 3 dimensions, we exist. 4 dimensions, there's another layer of reality. But that's not the same thing as different vibrational frequencies, which is what I think the ETs are doing. They could put their ships out of phase with our reality. They disappear. They're immaterial. They can shift back into our reality by changing the vibrational frequency. They're here. They're material. That's not changing dimension.
Right. All I'm telling you is what they're telling me.
Right.
And again, I can't go in all the dimensions, so I don't know. But according to them, what they are saying to me is there's multiple dimensions out there.
Well, according to physics, It depends on who you're talking to. Some of them say that the super gravity guys say there's 13, and other ones say there's 11. But theoretically, you can't access them and you can't live in them. They're not set up for anything to be living in. They're just different. They're different sections of the reality
But
we're
you
in.
know, the way when they're talking to me about stuff like that, I never have gotten the feeling that all these different dimensions are like a place as much as they use it all almost like we would use an expressway for the cars. You know what I'm saying? So I don't necessarily know. Now we have dimensional creatures as well, but the dimensional creatures, that what I would think would fall into what you were saying about the different vibrations and going to the different planes and plateaus or whatever based on the vibration. And we call them dimensional creatures. I've got pictures of those
That's
too.
what the mystics used to call a realm. You know, like Earth is a realm.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about a planet or solar system or galaxy. It's a realm. The whole thing, the whole cosmos is a realm. But you can go to other realms that are outside of our cosmos.
But then we have to understand too that when it comes to the Bigfoot, they have different meanings for our words.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah, what they're saying to you is, it's a different dimension. Well, they don't really understand what that means, and most humans don't understand what it means because they haven't done any, hyperdimensional physics studying.
So what our people might think is considered dimension is not possibly what they think, because, our words don't mean the same as theirs.
No.
There's some words that do basic stuff, but for the most part, no. So that's another thing when people are speaking to them or with them, as many people do. Again, a lot of miscommunication because we are looking at their behaviors, their way of life, and their words. We're looking at them like a hairless human, which is what they call us. We're not looking at it as coming from their side because their culture and their way of life, their words, everything is different than ours. So when they're saying to me, again, I can't change what they said. I don't disagree with you at all. All I can do is tell you what their words were.
Right.
And I'm not going to change it because that's what they said. That's the truth. And I'm not going to change the truth. But does that mean the same thing that what it means to us? Probably not. So in that respect, I think you're probably 100% right. But that is the
they're
words
not, let's just say they're not native English speakers and they're not reading textbooks on physics. So what they're getting about it is what we're telling them. And most of the people that are saying anything to them probably don't know what the hell they're talking about. So they could easily get a wrong impression about what it is they're trying to describe.
100% of the time. 100% of the time. And, again, I don't know it all. I don't even claim to. But, like, they'll tell me stuff, and for the most part, when they'll tell me, I'll start to think about it and think it's one way. I'll go, wait a minute, change that around because now I got to do it from their point of view.
Yeah.
And that changes things a great deal. I talked to a gentleman tonight, very lovely man that we were talking, just talking about the Bigfoot. And we were talking about the fact that, I get calls many times a week from people that are frightened because they had an encounter. And I always say to them, did they hurt you? Well, yeah, they yelled at me. Okay, that's yelling at you. Did they physically hurt you? Well, they yelled at me and they waved their arms. Okay. If you go to the military, waving your arms like this is a surrender.
Yeah.
Okay. Or how about if they yelled at you because you're in their home? If you were sitting at home and they barged through your front door, you'd be pissed. But yet nobody had the problem going into their home.
Yeah. No, exactly. That part makes perfect sense to me. And the other thing is, again, if they're out in the middle of nowhere, they're out in the middle of nowhere because they're trying to avoid humans. And then goes dropping into their territory, and they're like, the reason I'm out here in the middle of nowhere is to avoid you idiots. Stay away from me.
But see, and that's one of the reasons the government wants them gone. There's a multitude of reasons. Like, I know I probably have only scratched the surface in the reasons why the government tries to kill them all the time. And they do. They go after them with helicopters to shoot implants in them or to kill them altogether. I mean, this is a very real thing. They actively hunt them, whether to kill or to capture. They are actively hunted. And
I'd just like to remind the people that are involved in this actively hunting that whatever it is you're killing is part human, and therefore you're a murderer, and enjoy your eternity in hell, you piece of shit.
Exactly. But, part of the problem is when Melba did the study, the reason it's listed as unknown is because she didn't have access to any database to match it to, so it has to be listed unknown. So when I talk about the Bigfoot, the mom being human, the dad being an ET, please, everybody, understand, I am not talking about the scientific paper. I am not talking about Dr. Melba Ketchum. I am talking about what they told me personally. There is no connection between the study and what I'm told, other than I believe 100% in the study, and I'll always support it. But the reason it's listed unknown is because that's a scientific paper. There has to be proof to back up everything in it, and there was no way to have access to that database that would show what that was, because it was nothing there. The government had that database.
Right. Well, even if she had access to it, doesn't necessarily mean that that genome is listed there. I mean, they could easily not list it, even if they have what it is. And the other thing is that if you have a DNA sequence, in order to extract it, as I understand, you need to basically already know what the sequence is and use an amplifier to bring out enough of it to check and see if it's there. Well, if you don't know what the hell the thing is, how are you going to do that? And this is one of the reasons why the Bush League DNA researchers, when you hand them a piece of Bigfoot hair, they go, well, it was contaminated with human DNA. Sorry, clown, but everybody's known for like almost 15, 20 years now that you can clean the exterior of the hair and get a clean test off it, even if humans touch the hell out of it. So that's a BS excuse and just proves you don't know your job, not that you did it properly.
But, back to the government, they don't want people to know what they are, because then they have to come forward and say, oh, sorry, guys, we've been lying to you for hundreds of years. The ETs do exist.
Yeah.
I mean, we did treaties. Eisenhower did treaties. There was a secret program where they sent people to live on planet Serpo with the even. So, yeah, exactly. But they also, the truth is, they cannot protect people when they're out in their state parks. They can't. There's no way. And the Bigfoot and the Dogman are the least of the things that are out there. There is a whole lot scary things out there besides them. But you go into their home and they're there. And so because they can't stop it, they are never going to admit that they're there.
Well, now that brings to mind the other thing that's going on right now, which is that the government is being forced to disclose. All the agencies have been issued a 180-day order that by the end of the 180 days they've got to disclose what they know about it. And that was in the great big spending bill that was one of the last few bills that Trump passed, by the way, before any morons try and give all the credit to Obama or Biden. They didn't have anything to do with it. Trump signed the friggin' piece of paper that was on. Okay, so within, before the end of next month here, all of them are supposed to disclose.
And they should.
Which brings to mind, first of all, they're not going to. They're going to redact everything possible.
Oh, yeah.
Secondly, it's going to be a soft disclosure. And thirdly, they're going to lie their asses off.
Oh, definitely.
Because there's nobody holding a gun to the back of the head telling them that they have to tell the truth. It's just an order from inside of the same government that they constantly flout and don't do the job properly anyway. So to them, it's who cares? And you're not going to get any truth out of them.
And to be honest, and everybody that knows me knows, I don't talk politics with anybody because people just get too volatile. But I will say this. We have yet to have any party in there that's been honest about this stuff with the UFOs.
No. And even some of the individual politicians will talk about it, but the party won't say anything about it. Like Mitch McConnell has admitted he's seen a Sasquatch. Jimmy Carter saw a UFO. Okay. They'll admit this stuff, but that's a lot different than the party going, yeah, let's all talk about. No, because both of those parties, right and left wing, they're wings on the same filthy, stinking vulture.
Well, and I'm reading some things right now, and it's talking about what disclosures were actually made to the various presidents of both parties. Yeah. It's not just one party.
Some of them are read in heavily, and other ones are not allowed to know a damn thing, depending on who they are. And their connections to the Illuminati and the Masons and everything else.
But the thing of it is these things are real. I mean, I know they're real. I've had to deal with them my whole life. And I know multiple amounts of people that have had to go through the same thing I have. And they're not protecting us by not coming out with it. They're protecting their own asses, because protecting us is very clearly not what's on their agenda.
No. So what do you think is going on with this disclosure thing? Do you think it just got to the point where they realized there's too much evidence coming out? They can't lie and have the credibility anymore, so they're going to have to get ahead of it and create their own fake narrative and disclose it themselves.
I think you are 100 billion% dead on with that. I think that they can't stop people from seeing all these things. There's too many. They can't shut it all down. They've covered up everything that they can, and there's so much activity. Now, the Bigfoots have said for years that there will be a battle on this planet, one that most people will never know is being fought, but it will be a matter of everything coming to this plane. Everything from the galactics, everything from what they call a dimension, everything from the rifts in the plane, they will all meet here on this planet. And I said, well, what is the battle for? Is the battle for the planet? And they would say no. So what they're fighting for, I don't know, other than the fact they're going to be here. Maybe they're fighting just to be acknowledged. I don't know. They were never clear with me on that. But they have told me that for probably 13 years now, that this was going to happen. And if you really do your homework and dig deep, you will realize that more cryptids are being seen than ever before. More UFOs are being seen than ever before. More ETs are being seen than ever before. There's more abductions than ever before. What they have predicted is happening. Our government doesn't want to admit it. And you know what? Boo-hoo. I don't really care. I don't have a whole lot of, warm, fuzzy feelings for it. Now, that being said, I'm not a big government gal, but I will say this, for the soldiers that have fought and protected our country, that's a whole different kind of government. I have the utmost respect and love for them, and I thank them dearly for their service. The government I'm referring to is what I consider a shadow government, a dark government. That's not the same thing as our military. So please, anybody out there, don't take it that I'm attacking the military. I have very many children that have been actively in the military, and not only for them, but for everybody else that's in it. I have nothing but respect and love for them and gratitude.
Same thing with me. My dad was a frogman in the Navy, and my brother's Marine Recon. So military in my family too. And that's not the issue, because they go out there because they care about our country. They want to serve and help protect everybody back here. And then they get in some godforsaken foreign country, and they realize they've been lied to and sold a fake bill of goods. And then they get all depressed, and some of them commit suicide, and other ones have big problems for a long time. And so, yeah, they're victims too. The people that are causing this problem aren't even really citizens of the U.S. They're global scum. Globalist scum are the ones that are running the continuum of government, the COG, the continuum of government. Go look it up. That's who the deep state is. They've got all those names listed. You can go look up who the deep state is. Continuum of government.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. That's why I wanted to point that out, too, because I didn't want anybody listening to think that my feelings or anything was towards our military and the wonderful things that they do for us. I just wanted to take that moment and put that out there because I wanted clarification on that.
Yeah, and I think everybody else should also keep in mind that what's going on right now is basically we're sliding into fascism. And if you don't understand that term, go look at pre-World War II, where you had several countries that were extremely fascist. The one that invented it was Italy. And their leader, El Duce, said that the definition of fascism is when corporations and the government work together to control the people. Does this sound familiar?
Yeah. Well, and I think, and not trying to change subject, but if I could for just a moment, I would like to say, when it comes to these robotic Bigfoots and these ETs that are coming here, I just want to take a brief moment to say that a lot of our researchers, unfortunately, are being attacked by a lot of things right now, some that look to be a Bigfoot, some that don't. We really need to understand that these are not all Bigfoots, okay? We have ETs that are now, unfortunately, on our planet running amok, and they can shapeshift in anything they want. And there are certain behaviors that a Bigfoot will not do. A Bigfoot is not going to ask you to give them permission to hurt you. They just do it. They don't ask for permission.
Right.
And so I just wanted to take a brief moment so that people understand that we do have some very dangerous ETs that unfortunately are on our planet. There has been situations where have they gotten one of the Sasquatch that may be without a clan, without protection, or anything like that, and force them to help. You also have rogues that possibly they coerce to help them. But as far as what's doing these things, and I've worked with 2 or 3 cases now on that, as thank God, has turned out successfully once they were able to realize that their Bigfoot were not turning on them, that these are a different alien race that are here that are causing these issues. So just a FYI for everybody, things are not always what they seem, and please be careful. And when you get something that's asking you to give it permission to hurt you, Bigfoots don't do that. They also don't take possession of people. And there's been a couple cases where they're like, they've taken possession of this person or that person. A Bigfoot doesn't take possession. That's not what they do. That's not one of their ability things that they take over.
And that's something that Kat Hansen brought up in one of her recent videos too. Like, hey, all you guys that are sending me these weird questions about Bigfoot, they can't possess you. Those aren't Bigfoot.
Yeah, and they're not going to ask you, I'm sorry, can I have permission from you, to kill you? Are these things happening to researchers? 100% they are. So if you hear about a researcher that's gone through that kind of trauma and that terror, believe them. It is 100% real. I have the utmost respect for them for even coming forward with it, but those are not our Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, and we already covered this in, I think it was episode 107. We were talking about Mark Barton, Trail to Bigfoot, and his ordeal down there in the green swamp in Florida.
Yeah.
Where, he's got entities pretending to be Sasquatch and screwing with them.
But you're talking about these dark entities are watching our Sasquatch communicate with us and build relationships with us. And, some of them have been habituated, and they have contact and a connection with humans. And so what better way to get to us than to use them?
Yeah. Yep, makes sense to me. Well, was there anything else you wanted to add? We're over the hour mark here, and I think we've covered a lot of ground on this one.
We do. No, do you have any other questions for me?
No, I think that's about it. Everybody, if you got more questions down in the comments section, feel free to throw them in there. And Robin loves going back and forth and answering questions on the internet forever, constantly, for years.
Constantly. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I know, I went to the we get a break. But then I ended up answering questions while I was gone anyway, so it didn't matter. But and I don't mind it. I really don't. If I can help, but I am one, and you know this about me. If I don't have the answer, I'm not going to make it up to fill it in the blanks. I'll just simply tell you I don't know.
Well, and folks, just to let you guys know, Robin will be back again soon. We got some other interesting stuff about audio evidence of Sasquatch that we're having checked out right now. And we also got some other stuff that we may be able to talk about at that point. And she also has been teaming up with you guys that have been around for a long time will remember Researcher X, who is not on my show, but she's been on Bigfoot Outlaws with me. And she has more activity down at her ranch in Florida.
Yep.
Now that we solved the Sasquatch problem, she's got paranormal problems.
Yeah,
so
and
Robin and some other folks. Yeah.
Yep. She's contacted me. We're in contact, and whatever she needs, I'm here for.
So anyway, we're going to have those two together on the show, and Researcher X will be showing us some lovely pictures that she got from inside of her barn of a portal opening and shutting inside of her.
Yeah, I found a couple different things there for her that we were talking about. So, I think, some of the things that are going on, we're getting a little bit of a handle on, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. You don't usually get pictures of that. Especially, she knew there was activity inside of her barn just to set this up before the show comes around. And so she put a padlock on the outside of it and locked it so nothing could get in there, and set up a camera on the inside, and motion activated. And then she sent me like 22 pictures of portals opening and closing inside of her barn. And I went, this is above my pay grade. You need to talk to Robin about this one.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll be sure to send you that picture of the UFO with the portal in the head.
Yep, send that along so we can show everybody which picture you're talking about.
I'll send it over. I'll send it to you yet tonight.
All right, thanks, dear. Okay, well, thanks again for being on the show. Looking forward to having you here in the near future.
Anytime.
All right. And with that, everybody, I want you to all remember the usual warnings, which is to try and be kind to everybody else. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Do not poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puck, would you? Do not flip off the mountain giant. And whatever you do, don't hug the Wookiee. And keep getting this weird feeling something's watching me from. Yikes!
It's the Wookiee.
Okay, I'm out of here.